You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kelvin, and with me today, well, happy Pride Month. It's just the gays. Christos is here, and Ben's back as well. Patreon patrons, remember, you can now watch All Good Things as an extended video edit of this very episode at patreon.com/BQN. Christos, how are you? It's been a minute.
I know. Speaking of just the gays, I just saw like the gayest thing come on my YouTube feed before I stepped in here with you guys. It was Valerie Harper and B. Arthur singing a tribute to Lucille Ball at the Kennedy Center. So I'm like, you don't get much gayer than that.
Even just saying it is really gay.
I know. Very. I've been great. It's been a busy spring. I missed you guys last week. I ran off to Palm Springs with my boyfriend for his birthday weekend. So, So yeah, it's been like I said, I feel like a trope. I always say it's travel, but it is.
Well, at least it's travel for personal, sociable reasons rather than just work as always.
Oh yeah, it was I didn't realize how much I needed it too. It was like 90 degrees every day out there, and just pool time and getting some sun. Got a little tan line again, so almost reminded me of Sitges.
Sun, sea, and the other. Ben, you're back for week 2, so I'm guessing you enjoyed it last week then.
I did. You always remember your first time, and it was wonderful. So I'm back and excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Just before we hit record, Ben was asking, where do you guys get your microphones? They're so good. So you're obviously taking it serious. You're going to invest in a podcasting microphone, so you're a little less Dalek-like in your audio.
I listened back during the week, and I sound just a little underwater. So tune in next time and hear me in my full glory with a better microphone.
Oh, Christos, do you remember being new when we used to listen to each other back?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I used to be like, oh my god, I listen to myself, and now it's like that's the last thing I want to do. I was listening to you. I was listening to you voice on Friday morning though, so it's very nice.
I felt guilty recording that episode without you. It was literally your idea to do the brand new series of 2-parters.
It's kind of funny. It's like I feel like we're right in the smack of it because we just did our Borg recap, and then then that, and now today's episode. So I feel like I've just been living in the Borg zone.
Absolutely. Ben, as a very prominent Ro-Laren lover, have you seen the news today of the new Star Trek video game with Michelle Forbes?
I have, and at first I thought, because of where I saw it posted, that it was a fan edit, that it was a fan-created, maybe AI-enabled set of visuals to advertise it. And then I scrolled for a while longer, and it came back again with a trailer. And I said, oh, this is real. They're creating Tomb Raider / what's the franchise with the Umbrella Corporation? With the zombies.
I don't know.
Or it was a movie series. Mila Jovovich, I think, was in it.
Assassin? No, I know what it is.
I don't know. Maybe it was Kate Beckinsale, but there's some video game / film franchise that it reminded me of. But it's exciting news. She's getting her very own, not series, but video game.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic, because Michelle Forbes really wanted to distance herself from Star Trek and famously turned down the starring role in Deep Space Nine as the second in command, and took her 30 years to get her back in one episode of Picard, and now she's doing a video game.
We've all got bills to pay, darling.
True.
Admiral
Kate.
Resident Evil was the franchise I was thinking of. It reminds me of that.
Yeah. I was going to say the residuals for playing Admiral Kane aren't really coming in.
No. She's turning into Tasha Yar now. Like the woman, like she refuses to stay dead. She keeps coming back.
You'll have no complaints from me.
No, I know. Well, let's get into today's episode. We are continuing with our Borg season. And Christos, would you like to introduce today's show, please?
Sure. Our topic today is our Metamorphosis series, part 6. So we're kind of getting up there a little bit more mature on this series. It's Voyager's The Gift, which, if you realize our continuity, is the episode that immediately follows Scorpion 1 and 2. So it's kind of a trilogy of episodes. So the recap is, while Voyager recovers from the recent Borg and Species 8472 conflict, Kes's telepathic and latent psychokinetic powers begin to grow rapidly while Voyager's newest crew member, the former Borg drone 7 of 9, deals with her individuality. You're going to throw words like psychokinetic at 8 a.m., really?
You did very well.
I'm like,
no edits required or nothing. Well done, love.
Technobabble talk.
So we do our kind of episode guide in advance when we're planning out the shows, and I wanted to kind of do a bit of a focus on the Borg, and the Metamorphosis series really fits this episode. But I also like the serendipity that we as a show are kind of here where this episode is. We've got like Ben joining us new. We've got like changes in the roster, people kind of stepping down, stepping back, etc. So it's interesting that we're covering The Gift today, and I think it's nice to explore the two themes of the episode of 7 of 9 arriving at Kes's departure or changes.
Yeah.
And even like just the Janeway factor of the reflections of how Janeway interacts with these two very different characters, both in a kind of maternal sense almost. So, what do you think of all of this, Christos?
Well, I was going to say the one constant in the universe is change. So, it's a very fitting topic.
Yeah. Well, shall we start with the lovely Kes? Let's do a little bit of a deep dive on Kes's characterization in this episode, what comes after. Ben, I want to reflect on Kes's abilities, shall we just call them. Now, we didn't see much in the 3 years. They were hinted at straight away in Time and Again. We got the very great episode Cold Fire, where she boils Tuvok alive, if you remember. And then obviously in Scorpion as well. I think there was a little bit of telekinesis or precognition in cathexis, if I remember correctly as well. But that was kind of it. What do you think, Ben, of Kes's abilities? Was it any kind of a Deanna Troi ripoff, or what did it do to the character for you?
It wasn't a Deanna Troi ripoff for me, because she goes far beyond Deanna's I sense a presence, or Captain, they're lying, or they're withholding something. I think it was, you could say it was a little rushed. She went from 0 to 60 very quickly. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a build-up in terms of hinting that this might happen, or giving her some more screen time with those abilities. But I did enjoy that at the beginning of the episode, she's not able to control them, and she's become a danger to the crew. But by that last minute, she's able to harness them in a way to use them consciously to accomplish something really great, very impressive. And so it shifts her from almost being a victim of these abilities that she can't control to someone who has more agency and can harness them. And I think it's a good way to leave her.
What about you, Christos?
So I get a big callback when I watch it. First off, I love this episode of Voyager. I don't know why, actually, but I love this episode of Voyager. But it always reminds me of the TNG episode Transfigurations, when the they rescue the guy with amnesia, and basically he finishes his metamorphosis which accelerates through the course of that episode. Now, I believe that episode takes place over weeks, actually. This is just very like a day or two, but still kind of the same trope. It does kind of give you that, it kind of all adds to that Lower Decks episode about ascensions. Both of these episodes, everyone's always ascending. But I do think, it's a little rushed, but I think we can attribute that to the behind the scenes reasons of Kes departing the show, with Jennifer Lean leaving the show and probably being decided that summer in between seasons 3 and 4. So it's like, oh, now we have to write her out. Is that
when it was decided during the break?
And in fact, they weren't even going to have her come back for the episode. It was Jerry Taylor, I believe, insisted that they wrap up her story.
Right. So when they were writing Scorpion Part 1 and she was in telepathic contact with Species 8472, that was not part of her exit storyline. That was just the story Kessie's abilities were building. So had she not had her problems and had they not decided to write her out, this could have built even further.
Yeah, because I think the other part of that was it was almost... I think they were going to get rid of Harry Kim, and he ended up being on people's top 10 sexiest people alive that summer, and that kind of saved his skin.
Well, we said this on the last episode. Garrett Wang himself has said that is actually a load of bollocks. It was just a huge gossip rumor that came out. It was nothing to do with that award. He was in trouble because he was always out partying in Vegas, and he was late to set on a few occasions.
I heard that too.
So he got into big trouble, and he was at risk of being fired for that. But they were never going to write him out for being unpopular or anything of that nature.
These lores, they just change so much over time, and 30 years later, you don't even know what's true.
Hey, Grok, which is true? It's interesting because it is hard to talk about Kes and where things could have gone and not reflect on Jennifer's situation, I guess, even though it isn't largely, it's not definitively known what the true story is. There's been so many documentaries, but we never really know the heart of the truth to it.
Right. But at the end of the day, I will say, just being the pragmatist here, as Janeway would say, or the Borg Queen,
nice.
I do feel like she was like a very weak character. And if you needed to do something to juice up the show, she probably was the weakest link. I don't know. Is that controversial or?
Well, I don't know. Let's say if Kes had left, but 7 of 9 did not arrive, they just lost Kes. Would that have left a hole in the show? What do you think about that, Ben?
I think it absolutely would have left a hole in the show. I think in terms of untapped potential, Kes was the weakest in that sense, but there was so much more that they could have done with her. Whereas you look at characters like Harry Kim, Chakotay, even maybe Tom Paris to some extent, in terms of a weak character, I think they could be characterized as more of a dead end character, where they just never went anywhere else for the remainder of the show. And I think there are so many more places that they could have gone with Kes.
I feel like that could be a whole episode for us to be like, what character would you kill off from what series and during what season would you do it in order to like, so because I agree with what Ben's saying there. Like they could have gotten rid of Chakotay and I would have been fine with that too. That guy just kind of was just there for 7 years.
Yeah. But if we're talking about wasted opportunities, the opportunities for stories was there with Chakotay. Everyone talks about the underutilized McKee side of Voyager, which was such a big deal. They just chose not to do anything with it. But I am with you with Harry Kim. There was nothing of substance. Tom Paris, at least he got married and you saw some growth and change in his character, and he and B'Elanna together was great. But Harry was just nothing. He was just the ensign that never got promoted. Sorry, Garrett. What about Kessie's goodbyes? It was all very hurried in the episode, and obviously she didn't have these huge goodbye scenes, but there was a very clear goodbye scene with Janeway, one with Neelix, a lesser of one with the Doctor a bit earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
So, they were the characters that were really central to her own arc. Which one of them do you think was underplayed, overplayed, or just right, Christos?
Well, I the Doctor, you're correct in saying that it's kind of a half, because before she starts that final transformation, she was going to go say goodbye to the Doctor and didn't get that opportunity. But I think Janeway is the most touching for me, because Janeway, it was very maternal toward Kes, and that was kind of like a mother saying bye to a daughter. The whole part about it's a little cringy when Janeway wants to tell her she can't go, or I'm not letting you go. It just seems very not open to what's happening, like understanding and believing what she's saying. It was almost like just a couple of bad lines in there that I could have done without. That could have been, if I were regenerating, I could have saving, that would have been a little bit, that little part of that conversation would have been handled a little differently.
Yeah. And how much of that was Kate, I guess? Obviously the writers take control and they're not allowed to ad-lib at all, but in that performance you could really see Kate not wanting to see Jennifer go.
I never really thought of it like that. You're right, that could be it. The one thing I'd say about Kate Mulgrew, she was Janeway on day one and she was Janeway in the final episode. She shows up as an actress in every episode. You don't ever get the sense that she's slacking off.
Yeah. What do you think of Kessie's farewells, Ben?
Well, I've read or seen an interview with Kate where she goes on the record as saying that her emotion in that scene was completely genuine, and it made it more effective of a scene, and it was more impactful to the audience because she wasn't acting. She was genuinely feeling all those emotions as she was saying goodbye to Jennifer, which I love. And this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think the scene worked as well as it did because those overt displays of emotion were still pretty few and far between at this area in Star Trek. I'm not a Discovery hater by any stretch. I love the show. I've watched every episode. It's fantastic. But I hear the folks who are out there saying that there's too much emotion or there are too many tears. I hear them. And I think this is an example of having a really emotional scene with a lot of punch because you don't see it in every episode. The characters are not crying in more than 50% of the episodes in a season. And so it feels more fresh.
Yeah. I'll back you up on that, Ben. I've always felt that was I love Discovery. I'll keep it every day, but there are sometimes way too many heart-to-hearts and people.
There are big feelings. Big feeling.
A lot of empathy thrown around there. And sometimes at the most inopportune moment, we're going to take a time out from a crisis to have a, good share.
There's a scene in, I think it's season 4, where Buck and Burnham are literally running away in a firefight, and they go around a corner and they decide that's the perfect time to have a big heart-to-heart. It's like you're literally being chased with guns.
Right. Move. Well, in universe, that's 3 gay men telling you that, so I don't think we're wrong.
Obviously, going back to the 90s and that, and you've got your attractive female characters. The most natural thing for the writers to do is create them as the love interest. Now, obviously, Kes and Neelix broke up, and we all know what scrutiny that relationship has had over its appropriateness over the years. Do you think they would have sent Kes in a different direction with a different character had she stayed on? Because there was hints of a romance element with the Doctor. And I think that almost lifted and shifted onto 7 of 9. Do you think that would have continued, that the Doctor would have pursued his romantic feelings and it would have been Kes? Because it certainly wouldn't have been Janeway or Torres.
I would like to think not, because she's already been in the relationship with the creepily older Neelix. That didn't work for me. In retrospect, it's even worse than it was watching it when I was, 7, 8, 9 years old. And then to turn around and do the same thing with not necessarily older, because the Doctor was activated.
Technically, he's younger than Kes.
Technically, yes, but he's a mentor. He's in a position of authority over her as the Doctor. She's the nurse. I would have really not liked to have seen that dynamic with her as sort of the ingenue that the older men pursue again. I think with is it Before and After, the Year of Hell prequel, where she's involved with Tom Paris, that I think would have been more fertile ground for an interesting story, because there had been hints of it up to that point. Neelix and Tom had sparred even before that episode. So it seems to me that they were dropping some breadcrumbs that if things weren't going to work out with Neelix, that Tom was the backup love interest for her.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there was just so much more they could have done with Kes. I love the character. I love the actress. I say a lot of the time, I love her voice. Just it's so rich, and I think she was so young. So if she did have problems, if it was too much and she needed to exit, we've all had issues in our careers, I'm sure, especially at a young age. But I would have just loved to have seen more. I would have loved it more.
Yeah. Well, I think one lost thought with Kes, or is she's Ocampa, right? They're supposed to live 9 years. Am I right there?
That's right.
That's their lifespan. So by this point, she should have been approaching middle age, and so I don't think they were maturing. So I would assume, and that's a bad word, that there would be, she'd be maturing as well, not just physically. And I don't think they were doing that. She's still kind of starting from her starting point in Caretaker and 1, 2, 3, whereas she should have been like, there should have been about 20, 30 years of development for the character in terms of lifespan, so I feel like that was something that they kind of forgot about.
Yeah, I mean, they could have literally aged her up 10 years a season.
They age her really good when she comes back for that one episode. Suddenly she's all like older and evil and pissed off for I don't know what, but she is. But
they try in Before and After. I think that's the episode where they they give her the long hair and stick her in a cat suit to say, look, she's a little bit older. But it didn't feel earned. That it was, blink and you've gone from a tiny little short cropped haircut to really long flowing curls.
She should have been aging like in dog years, and that wasn't happening.
Wow. Okay, so Kes has things happening to her, and as a result, she is naturally curious and she wants to see where this new turn in her life is going to take her. She finds it both scary and exciting, and she makes the decision to walk away, run away, fly away from her family, from her normal, her comfort zone. And it just got me thinking, has anything like this happened to you in your life? Have you made the decision to say, I'm going to push myself out of my familiar comfort zone because this might be a good thing. I want to take a chance. So, Christos, there you go. There's an ABBA quote in there for you as well.
Oh, actually, and you know what? I was going to also literally quote you an ABBA song that's about this whole topic.
There you go.
So I'll start there. I was by myself yesterday, so I was cleaning house, and it was just music all day. And So, and I got down an ABBA rabbit hole at one point. And there's a song called I Wonder, and then parentheses, Departure. And it's literally about growing up in a small town and making the decision to leave. And when you leave, you're leaving that safety net, but you're also leaving I know exactly what my life is going to be. It's going to be safe. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to, I can tell you exactly how it's going to play, but it's a bigger leap, and to be brave and go on and leave that, and going, we'll just use the metaphor of going to the city or whatnot, and you don't know what life's going to bring you, and it's a very different life you're choosing. It's exciting at the same time, but there's always that. And so for me personally, so that's funny that I just heard that song last night and I was like, this is exactly what you're talking about. But I would say like 2 times in my life, I can right off the top of my I can say I chose to go to Hawaii to go to college.
Oh yeah.
And I was leaving everything I knew, like everything. I mean, and I was putting myself in a position where it wasn't like I was going to be able to go home once a month for the weekend and, sleep in my bed and see my friends. A lot of my friends were going to colleges that were 2-3 hours away from our town, not 6 time zones. So that was a big, took a lot of, it took a lot of guts. And I look back at that. I don't even know that I realized how much that took at the time, but like who the hell was that? And then I would say, in 2013, I had to make a decision to take a promotion and leave Hawaii and move to San Diego. And it wasn't quite as crazy. I knew a little bit about San Diego, and I was already working for the company I was working for. So it wasn't completely scary on all fronts, but it was a big leap to after 18 years in Ohio and then 18 years in Hawaii, I was starting another chapter, and it was a big one too. So it was like, you have to say bye to your friends, and and I see those people, you kind of realize who were your friends because you still keep up with some of those people. That the world we live in today, of the connected world we live in, is far different making that break in 2013 than it was in 1995.
Yeah. Did you have anyone kind of embody the Janeway role almost of, don't go, do you have to do this? Is it absolutely what you want? Or was it, it was your decision and people were generally happy for you?
No, I think people realized it was my decision and were generally happy. My parents almost pushed me to Hawaii. I think they thought it was going to be their trip, their way to come visit all the time.
We've got plans for your bedroom.
And my mom did make it into an office.
Brilliant. What about you, Ben? Have you had a life-changing moment in this manner?
Well, if Christos has moved to Hawaii as a 10,000 light year jump, I've got maybe like a 3,000 light year jump. It's when I went away to college. I am also from a small town, and I'm one of the folks that did go 2 to 3 hours away for school, but it was still taking me away from the place and the people that I had known my whole life up to that point. So it did feel like a big move, and I'm very glad I did, and it's all turned out well. But the first time it happens, when you're in that moment, it feels like this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to anyone. And then you come out the other side and you realize that you're better for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've had one of these moments. I'm trying to think, and I was thinking surely moving away from my parents' house to university, but it's literally 20 minutes in the car. It's no distance at all, even though it was a complete change in life. But there was just no question. This wasn't me moving away from my comfort zone, because my comfort zone wasn't necessarily very comfortable where I grew up. It was all of my teenage years were propelling me to go to university and get away, go and live somewhere a little bit more metropolitan with views and attitudes, not living somewhere where you'd be chased out with pitchforks. So I didn't have that. Should I stay or should I go? It was predetermined almost for me. So it's interesting hearing your examples there. Okay, shall we move on to 7 of 9? Let's talk about everyone's favorite arrival into Voyager. I do want to start a bit deep on this, actually, because obviously we did our Evolution of a Species series on the Borg, and there was that much content, we did it in 2 halves, if you remember, Christos. But it got me thinking, are the Borg a species, or are they a bit more like the Maquis? Are they some kind of conglomerate or a cult, if you like? Are they a species? And depending where you land on that question, it's about the validity of them. Is it appropriate for people to start trying to rescue the assimilated and throw them into a lifestyle that might be a shock, like it was with 7 of 9, all in the name of, well, that's where you came from in the first place? Who's got the right to do that to someone? Are you just undoing an abduction, or are you forcibly relocating someone to a lifestyle they didn't choose? I went quite deep on this, sorry.
I think Janeway says it very clearly. Like, Annika Hansen did not choose to be a Borg, and then was basically not thinking. And then as a transformed Borg, you're it's like Stockholm syndrome. You're like trained to think you're in the right place. Like, you want to be with your captors because, whatever they've done to you chemically and physically to your body has transformed you into a cult. So, yes, they're a collective. Are they a species or a collective? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know about that. We could probably debate that in our circles for hours, but I tend to 100% stand behind Janeway's decision to deborg her.
Right. Okay. What about you, Ben? Anything different, or are you Team Janeway all the way on that decision?
I'm Team Janeway as well. And with the benefit of hindsight, you see where 7 of 9 ends up, and it was absolutely the right decision, as resistant to it as she was at the time. But I think it's also interesting that you fast forward to the first season of Picard, and you see the species as oftentimes portrayed as unfeeling, unfriendly, as the Romulans going about doing this work of de-assimilating former drones. And if they feel that it's worthwhile, I think that's an even bigger indicator that it's probably the right thing to do if even they're using their time and resources to create the XBs, the former drones that can go on to live life. Now, interestingly, they're not rejoining society necessarily immediately like 7 of 9 did. They're sort of living in transitional housing, if you will, with other drones on the artifact before they're just shipped off to wherever they happen to come from before, because they're probably not going to be warmly welcomed. They still have visible implants, different places on their bodies. So they're learning slowly how to reintegrate into society.
It's a little bit of the artifact is a little bit of like a halfway house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on if you land on that are the Borg a species argument, because ultimately this is how they procreate. So the Borg assimilate, they don't procreate. So they are abducting people. It is wrong. No one's saying it's acceptable. But 7 has she starts with a lot of pride about the Borg. She loves that she has all this knowledge. She loves how superior she is in what she can do. But she does say during the episode, if I become fully autonomous and then I decide to go back to the Borg, will you let me? And Janeway doesn't really answer. She just says, I don't think you'll want to.
Right. Well, here's the funny thing. I think that, so now you're going down that road of, would somebody choose to be assimilated? And, it's kind of funny. If the Borg showed up here on Earth today, and we're hanging around and not like we're forming diplomatic relations. If they were just like beaming down and assimilating everybody, there are, we know the human race. There are people be like, yeah, assimilate me, please. I hate my life, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there would be people who would be lining up. Like, I'm thinking of that, like in the movie Independence Day, the woman on the top.
Oh,
of the
yes,
scene,
with the big
like
sign,
come
yeah.
and get me. We have people in this world who would be the first to say, assimilate me. So if you're one of those people and somebody tried to unassimilate you, okay, maybe you have a point, but it always boils down to what was your choice. But I think if you were forcefully assimilated, at that point, that's where the wrong was committed, and anything after that is to undo that wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get away from the fact she was a child, so there was no agency there with it.
Exactly.
Let's move on to another big topic with 7 of 9. I have got it. The Doctor designs a dolly bird. So casually at the end of the episode, he says, I've thrown together a pleasing enough aesthetic, the understatement of the year, especially considering the way his feelings develop. How do you feel about the sexing up of Voyager, the addition, however we feel about 7 of 9 as a character and how much we love her, this pure factor of let's bring in a babe to boost the ratings because it's needed. Do you think it was a good thing, or do you think it maybe undermined some of Kate Mulgrew's really hard work to portray a female leader in a non-sexy manner? I know Kate had issues, but what do you think about the portrayal of 7 in that manner? Certainly to start with, Ben.
Oh gosh, this is tough. As a grown person, hearing Kate's stories about it and knowing how hard she worked and how it was perceived as just a cheap, easy, sleazy, if you will, way to get more of that male 20 to 40 demographic, whatever, tuning into the show, I understand how she felt at the time, how doing the same thing on a TV show today would probably not be very well received, because it was, I think, a pretty obvious, it was obvious what they were doing. But at the same time, I think they got kind of lucky because they nailed it. I think the introduction of 7 went as well as it possibly could have. And for that reason, looking back on it, I think it's not as problematic as it could have very easily turned out to be. She was always well written. While she was visually sexy, very visually appealing to the male gaze, the writing was always there. It was always backed up by her own smarts, by her own ability, by her own agency, by all of the qualities that go beyond just the aesthetic. But I will say that it was effective, because I remember being just instantly enamored with the character and grabbed by it, in the same way that, when you're a 10-year-old little gay boy and you see Britney Spears in a sexy outfit, it's not, oh, I'm interested in this in a sexual interest kind of a way, but it was, wow, look at this empowered woman who is owning the way she looks and is out there doing her thing and looking great doing it. It wasn't just the straight men that look and that aesthetic appealed to. So I think it was very effective, but also totally understand why Kate would not have been a fan of it at the time.
Yeah, like it really was the male gaze.
Very much.
You were there with your little notepad taking cosplay ideas.
Right, and now here I am 30 years later dressing like her on the Star Trek cruise.
Obviously, we know Jerry wouldn't have wanted to do this, but would we as an audience, or even you as an individual, if you can only speak for yourself, would you have accepted 7 of 9 and thought it had been cool if she retained full Borg makeup and they didn't glamour her up? And the Scorpion Part 2 appearance of 7 was how she stayed.
You're asking me that?
Yeah, you go, Christos.
Okay. First off, I don't think they would have ever done that. Not because of, I think just for practical reasons, the makeup time and all that. That's worse than a wharf, to get somebody into full Borg. So no, I don't think so. And I don't think it would, we already know that Borg, we've seen Jean-Luc Picard be deborged. We know kind of how that works. So I just think that, I think they did everything right with Seven. And I think Jerry Ryan, to what Ben was saying, she knocked it out of the park with the acting. If they had they probably could have accomplished everything with just a slightly more toned down costume. And then you probably wouldn't have had Kate Mulgrew rebelling so far back against it. I think it literally wasn't the character. It wasn't the actress. It was the outfit. And that was the problem. And I get the whole, go sell your, like empowerment, look at me, I'm doing this, but no other woman on that ship was dressing that way. And they did this whole we devised this suit to help her heal, whatever. That was the idea behind the cat suit, the on-screen. But it was you could have put her in something just a little bit more relaxed, and it would have worked just as fine. But hindsight is 2020. You can't go back. So
let me pose this question to you, Christos. You've seen the movie Batman Forever?
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman suit.
That's Batman Returns.
Did I say Batman Forever?
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk to me about Chris O'Donnell or something.
No,
and everyone agrees universally that was a good idea.
Specifically, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman suit. Would that character have been as compelling if she had been in something a little more relaxed?
Well, no, and you are literally talking about the definition of a cat suit. You're talking about the idea of the cat suit that was originated back in, right out of the comic books and whatnot. And in a comic book world, I think that makes sense because that's the way it was been written for, 50, 60 years at that point. I just think in the Star Trek world where you've established that, the sense of equality between the male and female, and we don't hypersexualize and oversexualize. It was a blatant oversexualization of a character because nobody else on that show was dressing like that. And the only time you ever saw that stuff in universe was to portray a bimbo or a whore.
Yeah. And I guess that's the juxtaposition of you've got this absolute 10 out of 10, no Borg designation, pun intended there, looking woman who is the smartest person on the ship and the most capable, who can do anything, and it's almost superhuman. So that's the best of both worlds. God, all these Borg jokes keep coming today. I love it. Okay, let's have a look into a couple of more things that are specific in the episode, The Gift. I had a problem with two things in this episode. There was, firstly, the trust that the crew had in Seven of Nine when they tried to, throw her into engineering and help out, considering how she was behaving. And B, the Harry Kim scene. I just didn't buy it, that Harry is nervous around her. And it wasn't done because he's nervous. It's a scary Borg. It was, here's a woman that I'm attracted to and I'm trying to make small talk with her. They planted that seed immediately.
Ick.
And I didn't like it. I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was necessary. So, yeah, I think the crew trusted Seven too much too soon. And that Harry Kim situation is a little bit revolting. Any thoughts on that, or anything else in the episode that you thought, I didn't really like this, Christos?
Well, I did think the way that he turns around at the right moment and then gets clubbed, and then he just falls into the other guy who just, you're not going to fall down by Harry Kim.
Who's holding the door open.
Yeah, and then the door shuts, but it's like he can't just reopen the door. Seven of Nine had no time to relock that door. So it's all just a little stupid there. Once again, like Harry Kim is kind of playing the clown, So do I think they trust Seven too quickly? I think there's a lot of people that didn't trust her, and and Kim just was derelict in his duty and probably should have been reprimanded. I mean, if they go back and watch those cameras, like you weren't watching her. You're supposed to be watching. And the security guard has his back to her too. Like, he's not watching what's happening. How are you doing that? And ironically too, I let it keep playing yesterday when I was rewatching The Gift, and it goes into the next episode.
Day of Honor.
And when she wants to be assigned to engineering, B'Elanna's like, hell no. And she's like literally against it. And Chakotay has to pull rank and give her a direct order to do it. So I think there was that pushback on trusting too quickly by some of the characters.
What do you think, Ben?
Oh, B'Elanna was right. They were crazy to give her access as much as she had as early as she did. And if it wasn't for Kess's psychic vision of her trying to contact the collective in the Jeffries tube, who knows where they will all ended up. I think Janeway in particular wanted to see the best in her, maybe a little too much, but who knows? Maybe there was some subtext of, let's give her a long leash, see what she does with it so that we can use that to gauge just how trustworthy she is. I don't think that's what was happening, but B'Elanna was right.
Yeah, I think we might have lost your audio there, Ben, for the points you were making. If you wouldn't mind just.
B'Elanna was right. B'Elanna was
right.
I
don't find myself saying those words that often, but she was.
Note to self: get that on one of my Redbubble t-shirts immediately.
I was going to say, I think we just got a quote there. You just made a T.
Okay, time is marching on in this episode, so let's get on to some assimilations and regenerations. Christos, have you got an assimilation for this episode?
I do. Actually, I have two. I took the one out of here, but I'm going to put it back in. I do love at the end of the episode that they jump 10,000 light years or whatever and get 10 years closer to home. It's not 10,000. It's like 9,000 something, but it's 10 years closer to home. And I like the progression. Like, I feel like, that kind of even almost when Janeway says that, it almost tears me up a little bit when she says it. And it's like one of those, it kind of reminds me of Pathfinder a little bit at the end of that. And it's like, it's good progression of this like ongoing story that, hey, they are trying to get home. And it was twofold, the Borg part of it, getting past Borg space, which did they really? Because I feel like the Borg just never stopped being a problem. And then B, it just that they were a lot closer to Earth. And that was my, like, I took that out. But my other one is like, I loved the scene where Kes removes the implant that was causing Seven to be in neural shock when they're starting to deborg her. And I feel like that was a use of early CGI. And it was because of that influx of technology, between the scene with the neural shock and when they're like into the molecular parts of the fire and things like that, that was stuff we could never see on screen. If you like had dialed back, this is about 10 years after the start of TNG. Imagine if we had TNG 10 years later with where technology was. Yeah. A lot of it would have just looked a lot more sophisticated and whatnot. So I think I loved, especially like the later seasons of Voyager, because you saw battle damage on Voyager, for example, because they could CGI that. You never saw the Enterprise D have battle damage until like generations.
That was quite a lot of battle damage, let's face it. Ben, any assimilations for you?
Yeah, I loved the continuity and the serialized storytelling that the Borg implants on the ship weren't just gone at the beginning of the next episode. Seven didn't just wake up totally de-assimilated in an alcove like you see Picard fully
with a Band-Aid.
Locutus. Then the next scene, you see him and he is fully Picard. I like that they were able to take their time with that. It felt more real, and it gave a sense of the real progression of time in the episode, and not just a hard reset at the end, going into with a totally clean slate next week.
And why we all the three of us all see this as a 3-part episode. Really, it really knits them together. It's such a good point.
It's kind of funny. This is like the family episode that comes after Best of Both Worlds,
and exactly the same point as well. Season 4, kind of episode 2.
Yeah, exactly. I never stopped to even realize that.
Yeah. My assimilation, I've already covered it, but it's just the farewell to Jennifer gets me every time I watch this episode. I just don't want her to go, and I almost feel guilty as much as I love Seven of Nine so much. She's one of my all-time favorite Star Trek characters, but I feel like I've replaced Jennifer, and I get a lot of guilt. So just hearing Jennifer's voice in all of her scenes is so special in this episode. I really love it. I'm so happy for her. Let's move over to some regenerations. Christos, do you want to start us off there?
Yeah, I know, and I get we're trying to illustrate something for the television audience, but what the hell is Voyager's hull made of? I mean, it's literally rippling and rolling, and I mean, it's like Voyager has gas or something. You know what I mean? I feel like that Voyager should have just blown up really. With the second they show it kind of rolling down the top of I was caught up with the saucer or the oval or whatever we're calling it, the elliptical. It's like that seems a little bit incredulous that with all the structural integrity, force fields, and reinforcement, I think it would have breached, a tragic, like in a major way.
Yeah. And what you said earlier about the CGI, they could have shown some more of that explosions rather than the bubbling effect and shown a force field. Come on. That's what they were designed to do, but they can't take a lot of that punishment. Yeah, good point. Ben, any regenerations for you?
Yeah, when they're in transit after Cass does her thing, and the ship is depicted as going very, very fast. They've got sort of a distortion effect at the back. You've got the stars streaking more prominently than they usually do. So it's implied that they are traveling very, very fast. And Tom Paris even says, our speed is impossible. And we all know what happens, thank you, Threshold, when you exceed the warp 9.9 barrier. So I didn't love that. I would have liked it more if they had been displaced in some way, almost like the spatial trajector, or Cass dematerialized them here and rematerialized them on the other side of Borg space. But oh my gosh, we're just going very, very, very fast felt a little bit like a shortcut to accomplish what would have been a little more satisfying if they had put in just a few more seconds of thought as how do we want to get them from point A to point B.
Yeah. It would have silenced all the people as well who said, well, why didn't you just send them the whole way? And I guess it's that thing of that brief, intense moment. The ship couldn't sustain it any longer than they had. So if they went 11 years closer to home, they probably would have gone kaboom at that point. So yeah, it's even that little sound effect it makes when it goes whoop.
Yeah, I mean the implication, right? It'd be one thing to say like we folded space and here they are or something, but the idea that the warp core is now going at 100%, 110%, 120%
implies it could
that
do that
implies
anyway.
that now that also implies that that's just causing us to go to a faster warp, which to Ben's point, we've already been down that road with Threshold, so that's okay. We're nitpicking, but that's all right.
Nitpick. I love a nitpick. Well, my other nitpick, my regeneration is a nitpick. I didn't like that conversation about the Vulcan lamp. Tuvok got it from a Vulcan master who tripled the price when he saw his Starfleet insignia. I'm sure it was the logical thing to do. Well, no, it's completely logical because that Vulcan would know Starfleet doesn't have money. So wind your neck in.
But why are you portraying a Vulcan to be a Ferengi?
Yeah, exactly. It would have. Now, had they said it was purchased from a Ferengi merchant, I'd have bought that. I didn't like the implication of the greedy capitalist Vulcan, or the implication that Starfleet are mega wealthy when they live in a socialist society without money. So I didn't like it. It took me out of that very tender scene that I love so much. So naughty writers, you should know better. Right, okay. There's quite a bit of trivia on this, and some of it is quite chunky. So, Christos, would you like to start us off, please?
Well, according to the Doctor, this episode takes place a few days after Kes's contact with species 8472 during Scorpion, which, like we said, this feels like it is directly after continuation.
I love this one. This is the second episode in which all the main characters from all the seasons, including both Kes and Seven, appear. The first being the previous episode, Scorpion Part 2, and the third and final episode being Fury, the only episode after this one to feature the character Kes. After completing this episode, Jeri Ryan is quoted as saying about her relationship with Jennifer, "We rarely crossed paths, and I don't know if that was an intentional scheduling thing or not, in order to make the transition easier. We only had 2 scenes together in the 2 episodes that overlapped. She was very nice, but I didn't get to associate with her much."
Mm-hmm.
I should see if I have that Voyager magazine. I probably do.
Voyager loses its 4th shuttlecraft in this episode, having previously lost 3 shuttles in Initiations, Parturition, and Unity. In this episode, the shuttle is not destroyed, but instead left with Kes in the Delta Quadrant. I always thought it becomes part of Kes. Kind of like she absorbs it almost. Anyway.
I always assumed that it blew up and Kes was just kind of floating on some plane somewhere. Like, anyway.
She ascended.
Ascended, exactly. Janeway speculates that Seven might have been among the first humans to be assimilated by the Borg when she traveled to the Delta Quadrant as a child. The Star Trek Enterprise second season episode, Regeneration, would later establish that humans belonging in their own time had been assimilated much earlier on Earth while exploring the remains of the long-buried Borg crash. This followed the events of Star Trek First Contact, which depicts the first assimilations of humans in the timeline. That was cool.
This next one hurts my brain. Amy, where are you when we need you to talk about math? But this episode features the first large-scale jump Voyager makes towards home, in this case, 9,500 light years. Janeway describes this as 10 years closer to home, implying an equivalent speed of 177 million miles per second. This is much slower than the 4 billion miles per second implied to be Voyager's maximum speed in the Season 2 episode, The 37s. At that speed, assuming it could be maintained continuously, a distance of 9,500 light years would take less than half a year to travel.
That sounds like a final exam question on a maths
Amy,
paper.
make it make sense.
I mean, I think there's a whole Amy's Math Moment episode to be made out of this whole episode.
Yeah, she's getting some homework on that because of her tardy attendance at the moment. That's some work to do. Okay, as Christos said earlier, like TNG Family, this episode deals with the ramifications of a Borg-related 2-parter whose second part features a human character, one of the regular series, being separated from the Borg. The TNG 2-parter is, of course, Best of Both Worlds and the Best of Both Worlds Part 2, in which Picard is assimilated and then separated from the collective, whereas the Voyager 2-parter, Scorpion and Scorpion Part 2, as 7 of 9 separated from the collective.
Kes's statement that she can see into where the distinction between matter and energy and thought no longer exists is analogous to Wesley Crusher's statement in his conversation with the Traveler in TNG's Where No One Has Gone Before. Here, he states that space, time, and thought are not the separate things they appear to be. And I thought it was, and a little comment on that. I think Tuvok's comment, like, no, there's nothing exists there. I think it's very, ignorant of him to say that. I think of course, Vulcans don't believe in things they can't see. We all get that with the whole time travel thing from Enterprise. But at the same time, just because he can't see something doesn't mean it's not there.
It's very Enterprise Vulcan, isn't it? Like the Vulcan arrogance.
The intersection of space, time, and thought, very Doctor Who.
Yes. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
So when 79 throws herself at the Brig force field, Ayala calls to the bridge, identifying himself as Ensign. When he was made part of the Voyager crew, he was given the provisional rank of Lieutenant Junior grade. And we've seen this enough times. Maybe Starfleet just likes to keep people on their toes. What is Chief O'Brien's rank? Is he enlisted? Is he an officer? How many pips does he wear? Tuvok's rank changes from season to the next and then back. Chakotay's actual pips are Lieutenant Commander, but he's always referred to within the credits and on screen as Commander. So we can chalk this up to the shuttle photon torpedo number dilemma. Whose rank is what?
Tom Paris gets demoted at one point during the show. I mean, it happens.
I think my biggest critique on that continuity point is they didn't let the poor guy who played Ayala have the voice. That was definitely someone from the Loop group in ADR. So they would have had to pay him a lot more, obviously, if they give him a line.
Yeah, it's funny that this got called out because when he does call, "Ma'am, I think you should get down here," and she comes down, he doesn't say a word to her to say, "Well, she's been doing this and she was doing that." I mean, maybe we can say he filled her in while she was walking down. There could have been more dialogue there, but I was like, where's the report? And then have him report.
Yes.
What?
Report, crewman. Well, they've demoted me again.
What do you mean you don't want? If I say more than 3 sentences, you have to pay me a lot more. Actually, that's what happened there.
Yeah, I think they call that the rule of 5 or something. If you get next to 5 lines.
Yeah, I used to listen to that. It was like Star Trek: The Next Conversation podcast where these guys were watching it all the way through, and they would do that because they're like Hollywood guys. Oh, that person said more than 5 lines. They got paid, rate or whatever. They would always argue Ogawa would be one of those characters that would sometimes get to 5 lines and sometimes not.
Bless her. Okay, we've arrived at final thoughts. So, sticking with our theme of metamorphosis, previously covered in this series, we've had Enterprise's extinction, TNG's genesis, masks and identity crisis, and Voyager's threshold. So who did it better? Now, remember, for you, this is for you, Ben. This isn't which is our favorite episode per se. It's which episode in the series that we've discussed it from that list covered the process of metamorphosis best. So would you like to start off?
I don't know. I sometimes just pick my favorite of them.
I do that
transparency.
as a backup. If it that's my backup approach. If the theme isn't strong, maybe.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I'll give you 3. I will break it down: best episode, best Star Trek episode, and my favorite. So I think the one that handled the actual process of metamorphosis the most deftly would be Identity Crisis. I think there was a mystery element to it. It was, I enjoyed it. I think they handled the subject material well. The best Star Trek episode is The Gift. It is classic Trek for all the reasons that we've just spent the last hour talking about. My favorite guilty pleasure on the list is Genesis. I love it. I've loved it from day one. I will rewatch it repeatedly forever. I don't care what anybody says about it. Absolutely one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek.
Oh, is that the one that James McFadden directs, Christos?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I might have an autographed script right here somewhere. Actually, I do. So yeah, good call, Ben. I kind of agree with everything you said there. I was going to pick Identity Crisis because it does have a really good, good mystery. You see it, it makes kind of sense, even in our sci-fi world, what's happening. And I love the way math is used in that episode. I think Amy did a math moment on that episode. So yeah, I think Identity Crisis. I would give quick shout out to The Gift. Like I said, it's one of my favorite Voyager episodes, and obviously going to trump threshold here. I would not put Extinction from Enterprise on, my top list. Masks either. TNG was kind of jumping the shark there in a lot of season 7 episodes, but Genesis has a good metamorphosis / horror factor to it. And that's a really kind of fun episode too. But I'm going to go with Identity Crisis as my actual pick. How about you, Kelvin?
I think it might be a clean sweep. I am also going to go Identity Crisis. It has that tension element that I think is lacking elsewhere. It's literally a 6 of one and half a dozen of the other with these, because 3 of the episodes are great on this list and 3 of them are absolute stinkers. I have no time for Extinction, Masks, or Threshold, unfortunately. But whereas the others I love.
Isn't Identity Crisis the only one to have a Playmates figure?
It has 2. It has the Geordi as a Tarchanan, and then there's a special edition one where he glows in the dark. I found that in a thrift shop, would you believe, in the middle of nowhere down south in England. I was like, thank you. It was like 50 pence. It was great.
Threshold has Tom Paris in the surgical scrubs partially transformed into the lizard.
Yeah. And don't you get the lizard babies as the accessories on that toy?
You do. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay. I take that back. There is more than one episode.
What's happening on BQN, you ask? We're not just a network. We're a universe of exploration, entertainment, and deep dives into the topics you love. Here's your star map to the sonic adventures awaiting you. Let's chart the Star Trek cosmos with all good things. Embark on a comprehensive journey through the entire Star Trek universe with the insightful crew of Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. From classic to current, they cover it all. Galaxy class, engage! Steven and Stefan pilots this Alpha Quadrant mission, meticulously covering all aspects of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Infinite diversity. Stay current with the newest Star Trek frontiers alongside Chrissy and Thad. Union Federation. Whether your allegiance lies with Starfleet or the Planetary Union, Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley offer a unified front, discussing both current Star Trek and the truly Trek at heart, the Orville. Crack open that book with Peter and the Trek Book Club podcast. Delve into a rich tapestry of Star Trek's beta canon. What's the tea, Bev? Christos spills the latest Trek news and fandom insights with an essential LGBTQIA+ perspective, complete with engaging guest interviews. Our visual voyages that you can find on YouTube as well as podcasts are Trek Masters. Think you're a Starfleet Academy graduate? Test your knowledge with Davey and MC's challenging Star Trek quiz show. And the View Screen. Tune in live on Sundays for your dose of a Trek-inspired talk show. Kelvin and Amy host new 8-week seasons each spring and fall. But beyond the final frontier, we have Bargain Bin Gamer. Davey and Mitch, your self-proclaimed gamer guides, lead you to digital treasures, unearthing and reviewing the most affordable video game gems. Cinema Z. Grab your metaphorical popcorn for Mark and Matt's cinematic deep dives, unearthing overlooked films that demand your attention. History with the Szilagys. In order to never repeat it, tune in as Chrissy and Jason deliver bite-sized snippets of historical events from around the globe and transformational journeys. Host Lex Rosa explores what it means to embrace authenticity in the face of societal expectations. You can unlock deeper levels of engagement with our exclusive patron perks. The Hive Mind is where you can join our random script readings, live reaction shows, and roundtable discussions. You can also now watch All Good Things as an extended video edit and get a background look into the creation of a podcast. Also, check out our back catalog of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Stay connected to our ever-expanding galaxy of content by following BQN Podcasts on Instagram, Bluesky, YouTube, and Discord. We appreciate you choosing BQN to fill your auditory needs. Thank you for listening. Assimilate the audio.
Right, okay, Ben, so we're going to conclude our run of Borg episodes next time. Could you please tell the listeners what we're going to be covering?
Next time, we will finish the series with the classic Enterprise episode, Regeneration, where we'll be exploring the fear factor.
Christos, you look confused.
I was. I thought I misread that. Sorry. I need more coffee. More coffee. And, I'm in my Star Wars mug this morning.
It's early. We would love to hear what you thought of today's show, and there are many ways you can do this. You can join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or you can join our Discord server, or you can follow the network on Bluesky and or Instagram at BQN Podcast to continue the discussion there. You can find all the links and invite codes in the show notes. Do people still use Bluesky? Is it still a thing? Was it just a passing fancy, wasn't it?
I still have my account still there, but I haven't logged in forever.
Yeah. So Christos, where can people find you when you are not being separated from your collective and zhuzhed up in a little sexy number by a creepy bald man?
Well, first off, it's exactly what I was going to use for Ben. So thanks, Kelvin. I would think of something else here on the fly.
We think exactly the same. I know.
We are the same gay. You can find me in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You can find me on our Discord server, as Kelvin said, and you can find me on Instagram at What's the Tea Bev. So Ben, where can people find you when you're not propelling Voyager 10,000 light years closer to home?
Well, you can find me at Ben Boldly Goes on Instagram or also in the Facebook group. Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not scraping Borg implants off the hull?
That sounds like very menial labor. Thanks, Ben. When I'm not getting my hands dirty in deep space, you can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group, or you can come and chat to me directly on most of the socials at Kelvin's Timeline.
Nice. Before I read on, I'm going to give a quick shout out to another podcast because I've really enjoyed the last few episodes of the Sci-Fi Sisters. They covered petty captain moments this week, and it's really good. I think that would be a fun topic for us sometime. Petty captains, or captains being petty. And some of our favorites do show up in their list. And the week before they did cave episodes, and so I just thought it was they didn't have any guests on for, I would say, for a change. They almost always have an interview. This was fun. They were just doing their top, almost doing their top 10s and stuff like that. So anyway, shout out to the Sci-Fi Sisters. You'll never hear a commercial here on BQN except for that one for Sci-Fi Sisters. And if you'd like to help keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can watch the video version of this very podcast, or you can join our reaction shows, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only back catalog of shows like It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to sign up and get all the details.
Now, if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the like and subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a 5-star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show and builds our community of awesome listeners.
Thank you to all of our patrons, and a special shout out to our very own associate producer, JJ Seastrom. A special thank you to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Kelvin for our art week. Our artwork each and every week.
Art Week. That's another Patreon
Art Week.
exclusive.
Captain, like the Captain Picard Day. It's a little bit of all that.
Art Week. Brilliant. Love it. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
All good things.